Have you ever given everything you had to someone and still felt like it wasn't enough? Have you ever stayed up late worrying about them, replaying every detail in your mind, while they slept peacefully without a single thought about you? Maybe you've sacrificed your time, your energy, even your own happiness only, to realize that when you needed support, they were nowhere to be found. That quiet moment, when you finally notice the imbalance, can feel incredibly heavy. It's not just disappointment, it's exhaustion. The kind that builds slowly over time, draining you without you even realizing it. And the hardest part? You often do it out of love, out of loyalty, out of a belief that if you just give a little more, things will finally feel right. But what if the problem isn't how much you give, but who you're giving it to? What if there are certain people in your life who are quietly, slowly taking pieces of you away without ever giving anything back? Today, we're going to uncover something most people realize far too late. There are 5 types of people who can silently destroy your energy, your peace, and your sense of self if you keep giving to them without limits. I used to be the person everyone relied on, the one who always answered the late-night calls, who showed up no matter how tired I was, who gave advice, time, and even money I couldn't afford to lose. I believed that if I cared enough, if I gave enough, people would do the same for me when I needed it. So I kept giving again and again, ignoring my own needs, pushing aside my own pain, convincing myself that this is what good people do. But when life finally hit me, when I needed someone to stand beside me the way I had stood for them, there was nothing, just silence. That silence taught me something I wish I had understood earlier. Not everyone values what you give. Some people simply take, not because you are weak, but because you are willing. And the hardest lesson of all is realizing that kindness, without boundaries, can slowly destroy you. Not everyone deserves your time, your energy, or the depth of care you carry inside you. This is not about becoming cold, distant, or turning your back on people. It's not about losing your kindness or pretending you don't care. In fact, it's the opposite. This is about learning how to protect your energy, your peace, and your emotional well-being in a world where not everyone values them the way you do. Because the truth is, some people don't just accept your kindness, they depend on it in unhealthy ways. They take without giving, lean without growing, and slowly drain you without you even noticing. And if you don't learn to recognize these patterns, you can spend years giving yourself away to the wrong people. That's why it's so important to understand who you're dealing with. In the next few moments, you'll start to see 5 specific types of people patterns of behavior that may already exist in your life. Once you recognize them clearly, everything about your relationships will begin to change. Think about someone in your life you haven't heard from in weeks, maybe even months, someone you once felt close to, someone you showed up for without hesitation. Now ask yourself, when was the last time they reached out? Was it to genuinely check on you, to see how you were doing? Or was it only when something went wrong and they needed your help? People like this have a pattern. They appear suddenly, full of urgency, saying all the right things, making you feel important and needed. And because you care, you respond. You give your time, your energy, your attention without question. But the moment their problem is solved, they disappear just as quickly as they came, until the next crisis. And then, the cycle repeats. The painful truth is this: they don't miss you. They miss what you do for them. There is a huge difference between someone who values you and someone who only values your usefulness. If their presence in your life is always tied to their needs, then what they're holding on to isn't you, it's the benefit you provide. Think about how many times you've dropped everything the moment they called. How often you ignored your own needs, your own exhaustion, just to be there for them. Maybe you canceled plans, lost sleep, or carried stress that was never yours to carry. Because in that moment, their problem felt more important than your own life. And you did it without hesitation, because that's who you are. But now ask yourself one simple, uncomfortable question. When was the last time they showed that same care for you? When was the last time they reached out just to ask if you were okay, without needing anything in return? If you struggle to remember, that silence is your answer. Real connection is not one-sided. You are allowed to care about someone without constantly sacrificing yourself for them. You are allowed to step back, to protect your energy, and to love from a distance. Because sometimes, distance is the only way to stop being used and start being valued. This type of person is harder to recognize because, at first, they genuinely seem like they need help. They come to you overwhelmed, stressed, and full of problems. And because you have a good heart, you listen. You stay with them. you think deeply, and you offer real solutions, practical steps that could actually change their situation. But then something confusing happens. No matter what you suggest, it's never good enough. One solution is too hard, another won't work, and another is met with "you don't understand." Days pass, then weeks, then months, and you find yourself having the exact same conversation again. The same problem, the same emotions, the same frustration. Nothing has changed. It becomes a loop that never ends. They keep talking, you keep trying, but there is no progress. And slowly, without realizing it, you start to feel drained because you're investing energy into a situation that refuses to move forward. Here's the difficult truth most people don't want to accept. Some people don't actually want their problems to be solved. Their pain gives them something: attention, sympathy, a reason to stay where they are without facing the fear of change. As long as the problem exists, they don't have to grow, and they know you will keep showing up for them. Every time you offer help, you're unknowingly feeding a cycle that keeps them stuck. Your kindness becomes their comfort zone, but real change requires effort, responsibility, and discomfort, and they are avoiding all of it. That's why nothing ever improves. The lesson here is simple but painful. You cannot save someone who is not willing to save themselves. No matter how much you care, no matter how much you try, it will never be enough if they refuse to take a step forward. Sometimes, the most powerful thing you can do is step back and stop solving problems that they are choosing to keep. This type of person doesn't just drain your energy, they slowly damage your confidence. They come to you when they feel lost, asking for guidance, and because you genuinely care, you give them your best advice. You think carefully, you speak honestly, and you want to see them succeed. At first, they seem grateful. They thank you, they tell you how much your support means to them, and they walk away feeling hopeful. But when things don't go as planned, everything changes. Suddenly, the same advice they appreciated becomes the reason they failed. They start saying things like, "I shouldn't have listened to you," or "This is your fault." And because you have a kind and reflective nature, you begin to question yourself. You replay your words, wondering if you led them in the wrong direction, if you somehow caused their outcome. Little by little, their blame becomes your burden, and you start doubting your own judgment, even though the choices were never yours to make. The deeper issue here is not your advice, it's their inability to take responsibility for their own decisions. Instead of reflecting on their choices, they look for someone to blame, and you become the easiest target simply because you cared enough to help. Over time, this creates a dangerous pattern. Every mistake they make somehow leads back to you. Every failure carries your name. You find yourself walking on eggshells, afraid that even your support might be turned against you. This is not a healthy relationship, it's a trap. And the longer you stay in it, the more you lose your confidence, your peace, and your sense of clarity. The truth is, you are not responsible for the outcomes of someone else's life. You offered guidance, not control. You supported, not decided. The lesson here is clear. You must step out of this toxic cycle, because if you don't, you will spend your life carrying guilt that was never yours to begin with. This type of person is the most subtle and often the hardest to recognize, because on the surface, they look like a friend. They show up, they smile, they say the right words, but something always feels slightly off. When you share your success, they congratulate you, but there's no real warmth behind it. It feels forced, distant, almost empty. And when you talk about your goals or dreams, instead of encouraging you, they quietly point out doubts, risks, and reasons why things might not work. Not in a supportive way, but in a way that slowly makes you question yourself. Over time, you start to notice a pattern. When you grow, they seem uncomfortable. When you struggle, they seem unusually calm, almost at ease. This is quiet, jealous kind that doesn't openly attack you, but slowly pulls you down. They compare themselves to you in silence, and instead of rising with you, they try to keep you at their level. And the most dangerous part is how they make you feel. Smaller, uncertain, and drained after every interaction, even if you can't fully explain why. This is the type that pulls at your heart the most, because their pain feels real, and their struggle feels genuine. You see them fall apart, and every part of you wants to help, so you do. You show up again and again, lifting them when they can't stand, encouraging them when they lose hope, believing in them even when they stop believing in themselves. You give your time, your energy, your emotional strength, the very thing you have just to see them get better. But no matter how many times you help, they keep going back to the same patterns, the same mistakes, the same choices, the same cycles that hurt them over and over again. And every time they fall, you're there to catch them. At first, it feels like love, but over time, it becomes exhausting. You start to feel drained, because no matter how much you give, nothing truly changes. You're not helping them move forward, you're just keeping them from hitting the ground. And in the process, you slowly lose yourself. Here is the painful truth that changes everything. You cannot want someone's healing more than they want it themselves. No matter how much you care, how much you give, or how hard you try, real change only happens when it comes from within them. And sometimes, without realizing it, your constant help is actually holding them back. By always stepping in, always fixing, always catching them before they fall, you remove the very consequences that might have pushed them to grow. Your support becomes a safety net that keeps them comfortable in the same destructive patterns. That's why stepping back is not cruelty, it's clarity. It's understanding that love is not always about being there every time, but about allowing someone to face their own choices. Sometimes, the most powerful form of love is distance, because in that space, they are finally left with themselves, and that is where real change begins. So let's bring everything together. The person who only shows up when they need something, the one who keeps repeating the same problems but refuses every solution, the one who blames you for their own choices, the one who smiles at your success but quietly envies you, and the one who constantly needs saving but never truly changes. These are the 5 types of people who can slowly drain your energy, your peace, and your sense of self if you keep giving without limits. And the truth is, many of them are not strangers. They are people you care about, people you've invested time and love into. But you have to remember this: your time, your energy, and your emotional strength are valuable. You deserve relationships where that care is returned, not taken for granted. So, here's the question you need to sit with. If you stopped giving so much to the people who haven't earned it, how would your life begin to change?